This episode of Baby, This is Keke Palmer is sponsored by the good old folks over at Airbnb, because some trips are better in an Airbnb. All right, y'all, let's get into it.
Dang, nobody's ever asked me that. So it was actually a real struggle.
I'm sure. Probably helped you become the great communicator you are today.
And so I was having to listen to these stories, and they were heartbreaking. And I was like, I don't think I can do this.
We used to be able to talk about our differences and be like, look, I agree with you on this thing, but honey, I can't go. And whatever group that we decided to be a part of didn't count for the entirety of our personality.
No, I never broke the rules. I never said her name, but a hit dog hollered. She knew exactly who I was talking about. She was like, I look good for being 50. I'm like, girl,
I look good for being 50.
Yes, that's what she, yes.
I am beyond excited to have this powerhouse on the show today. She's a bold advocate, a civil rights attorney, and a rising star in Congress, known for speaking truth to power and championing the causes that matter most to our communities. From fighting for voting rights to holding it down for Black women in politics, she is making waves and setting new standards. Representative Jasmine Crockett. Welcome to the show.
It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you. The last time I saw you were in Martha's Vineyard with Sadie Hostin.
That's right.
Having a great conversation. I think it was around DEI.
Yeah, I think it was.
It was fabulous.
Yeah.
But I told you I wanted to have you on the show.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
And you had your sweet little baby there, too.
Yes,
who
Leo.
Yes.
So I'm glad to have you here. How have you been?
Busy.
A lot's been going on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
After I left the Vineyard, it actually was right after that event. I walked out, I got in the car, and I got the call saying, hey, we want you to speak at the DNC.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I don't know what all this means. And they were like, you will get some follow-up phone calls. And then I headed off to head to Taiwan. So I was writing my speech for DNC while over in Taiwan.
Well, congratulations, because you were recently named the national co-chair for Harriz-Walz campaign.
Yes.
How does it feel? And what does it actually mean for people that are probably figuring out what is that, how much more now is added to your plate?
Yeah. So I will say that being a co-chair means that it sends a signal to people. It lets them know that, hey, this is somebody that the team really does see as a partner. So people understand that. So I get all kinds of emails. They like, well, y'all need to do this and y'all need to do that. I'm like, listen, I do have a day job, y'all. Like, so my entire job isn't necessarily the campaign. But as we are in the final days, I am absolutely spending so much time traveling the country. I've been to every single battleground state at this point, and most of them I have been probably no less than 3 or 4 times. Some of them I've been to 7, 8 times, and I'm gonna keep going. So I go wherever I'm needed, and it's because I'm fighting for the future of our country. And that looks like, Harriz-Walz.
I love that. And those nails, by the way, guys.
Yes,
Come on, patriotic.
I had to do something different.
I live, and I feel like you're putting that back in the forefront, especially for people of color and women of color that don't know how they can fit in being patriotic and caring about the country in a way that feels like it cares about them.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate and love to see that in you. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today is your journey navigating politics as a Black woman and really learning about who you are and where you come from. So let's go back to your childhood. What were you like as a kid? Were you always interested in politics? Was your family interested in politics?
No.
Wow.
None of the above. So no politicians in my family, no attorneys in my family. My granny used to go on about, we got enough teachers and preachers. Can we get somebody else? So everybody in my family, for the most part, is a teacher or a preacher. And my daddy actually was both.
All leaders.
Yeah, they are. But I will tell you that I actually was always top of the class. I was always like in some elected something, right? But it was just because it was like, I need to get stuff done. And that's honestly what it is like now. It's not that I really care that much for the title, but I really want to affect change. And this is what it looks like to affect change, is to get into position and to be able to listen wholeheartedly to people and not have other forces that are kind of controlling or pulling the strings, and being able to say, okay, let me translate the need into actual action. And so that's what I consider myself to do, is kind of be that amazing translator that listens and then translates it into something tangible that people can say, you know what, this is exactly what I needed.
I love that you put it like that, because my next question was going to be, even if you weren't into politics, was there something that let you know that is where you could use your skill set?
Yeah.
And I talk about this all the time because I feel the same way about my job as an entertainer. Even though, people wouldn't think of it that way, ultimately I want to be a communicator. Yes. I want to be a translator. I want to translate an emotion, a feeling. Yeah. And the way that I know how to do it is through portraying it, whereas you through speaking it and working in politics and law.
Yeah.
So you grew up in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yes.
And attended an all-girls Catholic high school
Oh
in
my
St.
goodness,
Louis.
your team went digging.
We went digging. We went in. But you were Baptist. So what was that like? I mean, it's all Christian, right? But it's maybe a different culture. So going to Baptist church and then going to Catholic school. How did you kind of deal with that?
You know what? No one has ever asked me that question. So kudos to this team for sure. I'm going to tell you, dang, nobody's ever asked me that. So it was actually a real struggle.
I'm sure.
So,
probably helped you become the great communicator you are today.
Maybe so. But my mom, I remember probably one of the first days that I went off to school. And for those that don't know, when you go to like a Catholic school, you have to take religion.
Yeah.
And so I went to school and I was like, Mama, I was like, this ain't what I know about Jesus. and so my mama was like, baby, she was like, just look at it like it's another class. And so that helped me. But it helped me in more ways than one because I ultimately consistently kind of went to these religious schools, even for college. And so we always had to take so much religion. But it's amazing how I talk about my life and I talk about the fact that God always knew what his purpose was on my life, but I had no idea. And I think that I'm still trying to figure out, okay, God, you gonna include me in? Because like none of this is what I imagined. But when I think back to the preparation that I've had, going into those classes, now being able to represent such a diverse group of constituents, it's really very helpful. And now as we are continuously talking about religion and the issues that we're having with people really hating on people because of their religions, I think that it has allowed me to have just kind of a little bit more of an enlightened mind because I've read through the holy books of multiple different religions. And while it may not be what I subscribe to, I think I just have a better understanding of where a lot of different people come from.
And how to navigate the systems. Because I think aside from the fact of what we all can connect to spiritually on the baseline level, every religion, every difference is a system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out how to work through that system to get to the root of something that we all genuinely love, know, or care about.
Yeah.
And it can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
So in college, you majored in business administration.
I did.
And I read that you considered becoming an anesthesiologist. Now, this is funny because I did too for a second, but just because I heard that they got paid a lot. So I was like, anesthesiologist, get them on the drugs, they knock out, I'm out the door.
Listen.
So I don't know why I thought that, but when I read that, I was like, that's very interesting. But then also a certified public accountant before deciding to attend law school.
Yeah.
What made you go from there to then wanting to do law school? I mean, we went from anesthesiologist, public accountant, and then boom.
Yeah. No, that is so funny. I kept saying that I wanted to be a doctor because I didn't really want to have to talk to people and I could make good money. So I was like, let me put them to sleep and then I can get my check.
Same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And here it is. I have to talk to people. People elect me, so it's kind of weird. But nevertheless, it was biochem 2 at 8 a.m. that I was like, I'm good. I'm so good on this. But I was always a math and science person. So law school was never on the radar. So when I went in and talked to my advisor, I said, yo, like, I'm not going to do this medicine thing. So what can I do and still get out in 4 years? And so she said, well, you should do really well in business because of your aptitude for math and science and you've got enough kind of coursework. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll do business. I'll become a CPA. Again, I really wasn't going to have to talk to that many people. I was just going to play with my numbers and chill out, right? Yeah. But it was my professor, Professor Pullman.
Shout out Professor Pullman.
And it's amazing. I actually did Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh my gosh, Little Shop.
Yes. I did it on campus. And it was Professor Pullman that recruited me. He said, he was like, everybody that's on the mock trial team, like they actually can't act. And I need some people that can be dramatic. And I was like, but I'm not going to law school. He was like, yeah, but I need like some people on the mock trial team. And so I was like, okay, I'll consider it. So I went and tried out my junior year and I, of course, made it. And there were all these kids that were crying. They were like, I will never make it into law school if I don't. I was like, well, I'm not going to law school, so I'll give up my spot. So he said I could only give it up if I came back my senior year. So I gave up my spot. I went back my senior year. I became an All-American, National All-American, the only year that I did mock trial. So he goes, now do you believe me that you should go to law school? So I said, I'll apply. So I applied to law school, got a full ride with the stipend. And so I was stipend. And listen, yes, I needed that little extra money. Yes. To pay for the books and everything. But anyway, and so I was like, you know what? If I don't like it, I'll quit. And I actually fell in love with law school.
Girl,
so,
wait, what did you fall in love with? Because this is a certain type of, this is your power. This is how you use your purpose through
Yeah.
this facet. That's a
Yeah.
gift.
Yeah.
How did you just love it? What was it about it? Because, I mean, my sister's in law school right now, and I think she loves it, but she also is dying, okay? So what was it that made you just, like, connect?
I think because I had always been that kid that challenged what we were learning in school. I was just like, I don't see how this is relevant to my life. Like, how is this going to be? Like, I was always looking for the relevancy. And finally, I entered an arena where I was like, oh, well, this is like when my cousin got locked up. Like, I could actually like play. I was like, oh, or even, contracts and, landlord tenant stuff. Like, it was all stuff that I could actually place in real life. And so I was like, I don't know what we got to do the rest of school. Like, this is the only school that matters. And so I don't know how many lawyers you got, but that, like, there's a lawyer for everything, right? There's a lawyer for everything.
Family lawyer, entertainment lawyer.
Exactly. And so with that, like, literally, when you're in law school, it is the real parts of life that we deal with. And so for me, I was finally like, I don't know why I had to do the rest of this stuff. Like, I didn't care. Like, I don't know the last time I used no calculus, nothing, right? Like,
I love that so much.
But even though I'm not allowed to continue practicing law because I'm currently serving in Congress, I can still see how my legal training is so very helpful. It's helpful in my current job, but it's also helpful, like, in my everyday life when I'm trying to navigate contracts and things like that. So I think it was just the relevancy that I really got excited about.
Baby, this is Keke Palmer, yeah.
The streets call me Keke Keep a Bag Palmer for good reason. Your girl is busy, okay? Producing this amazing podcast, writing my second memoir, running my own production company on top of acting, singing, dancing, and hosting. I'm working hard, but I need to play hard too. And for me, these days, playing honestly means resting. Yeah. And that's where Airbnb comes in, because there is nothing better than sending the group chat a quick weekend trip message, then immediately pulling up Airbnb's guest favorites to see what's highly rated, close by, and available ASAP for a quick girls-only weekend getaway. Baby, when I tell you we found the cutest little cabin in Joshua Tree outside LA, it was like our own private oasis. Y'all know I don't mind roughing it now and then, but my girlfriends do not share my rough and tumble proclivities. So glamping it is. Luckily, we got luxurious 5-star accommodations while still unplugging in nature to let our edges breathe. Yes, I said edges. Thank you, Airbnb. The best part was having our own kitchen to whip up some snacks and cocktails. No more cramming into a tiny hotel room, having to drink out of a paper coffee cup and serving, I don't know, just not fabulousness, especially with the overpriced minibar options. In our Airbnb, we could truly let our hair down and make some memories. Listen, I'm trying to put y'all on game. Some trips are seriously better in an Airbnb. So the next time you need a girls trip or a staycation, check out the guest favorites on Airbnb first. If there's one thing I love, it's a good, scary story that gets your imagination running wild. And Audible has them in spades. Let me tell you, the audiobook I'm listening to is a straight-up thrilling ride. It's called The Haunted by Bentley Little. And this thing is not for the faint of heart, okay? It's officially spooky season, so why not listen to this horror novel by an author my sister was raving about? So The Haunted follows a family who moves into a house, right? A new house. And of course, this place is crawling with some serious supernatural activity. Strange noises, creepy visions, and all kind of unsettling stuff. And the more they try to get to the bottom of it, the deeper they get pulled into the twisted, terrifying mystery. See, the beauty of listening to a book like this on Audible is that the experience is wild and immersive. It's like the words are just seeping into your brain, making every hair on the back of your neck stand straight up. You're going to be picturing every last chilling detail, and you'll get spooked right alongside the characters. The suspense is going to have you on the edge of your seat, heart pounding, palm sweating, just perfect for this time of year. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's fall, I'm busy, I don't have time to listen to a whole audiobook, but that's when being an Audible member comes in clutch, besties, okay? As a member, you get to choose one title a month to keep forever in your library. And remember, Audible is made for your busy schedule, so you can listen at your own pace, whether you're commuting, working out, or just trying to escape the demons in your own home. Ooh. Just hit play on the Audible app. Thanks to Audible, there's more to imagine when you listen. New members can try Audible free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/Keke or text KEKE to 500-500. That's audible.com/KEKE or text KEKE to 500-500. let's talk about how you decided what you want to do, because you passed the bar in 2006 and then became a public defender. How did you get to that version of, this is the type of law I want to do, which can be quite heavy.
Yeah.
It's a very, you know what I mean? Like emotionally. So
it's
how
a
did
lot.
how did you decide that, and did you ever want to change in the midst of it?
Yeah, so I actually started off doing class action defense work.
Okay.
I hated it.
And what is that exactly?
I'm going to break it down. So at the time, I was representing one of the largest pharmaceutical companies that was being sued as it relates to potentially causing cancer for women. Oof. And I was on the defense side, and so I was having to do depositions and things like that and listen to these stories. And they were heartbreaking. And I was like, I don't think I can do this, because I was like, I don't think my heart is in defending this.
Okay.
And so it was soon thereafter that they had started a public defender's office. So the public defender's office was brand new at the time. And I remember going in and interviewing, and my boss that ultimately ended up hiring me, Charlie, I sat down with Charlie and he says, well, you have no experience. And I said, that's true. And he was like, so why should I hire you? And I said, because I'm black. And Charlie was not black, just FYI. just so everyone has the visual.
That's why you need me. Okay.
He was an older white gentleman. And he looked at me. And I was like, yeah. I said, let me tell you something. I was like, I'm smart. I'll figure out the law. I said, but I'll walk in and deal with so many African-American clients, and I'll have a natural rapport as soon as I step in. And so I said, so you need somebody like that on the team. And so, you know, I wasn't really working very hard to get the job, making that statement. And so he calls me back maybe like a week later. Yeah. And he gives me the offer. And I was like, oh, that's a $20,000 pay cut. I'm sorry. I can't. So I know he was thinking, wait a minute, you have no experience. And the only thing that you said that you were bringing to the table was the fact that you could figure something out and that you was black. And now you want to tell me that you're not going to. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that. And so he then said, okay, let me talk to the commissioner's court and see if I can get some more money. And he came back and he was like, can you meet me in the middle? And I said, okay. And so I did. And so initially, I never had any intentions whatsoever to do criminal defense, because I was like, if I mess up, somebody may kill me.
Okay,
so I was like,
I was like,
I don't know about this, right? Ultimately, though, I can tell you that it set me on the trajectory that I'm on now. Yeah. Those real life experiences, finally understanding what people meant when they talked about the system and how the system wasn't really working for us, and really wanting to get integrated into the system itself and change it. A lot of it initiated with my actual experiences as a public defender.
I was going to ask that because I imagine the stories that you saw, they gave you some insight into the fact that by the time that they get here, it's almost impossible to change things. I would imagine that's how it would feel. Like, we got to kind of get it at the beginning, and I don't even know which aspect of the system or how many different aspects of the system contribute to that last moment where we're here in court. Yeah. But that's what I feel like we are all trying to figure out, right? Yeah. I mean, and your first move into politics was 2019 when you ran in a special election for the Texas House of Representatives 100th District. Now, how did you decide to do that?
So I'm going to back you up a little bit. So my actual first foray was in 2010.
Wow.
So in 2010, when I was 28 years old, I actually ran to become the district attorney because of what I saw happening on the defense side. We had people that were being incarcerated past what the law allowed. And so I was having to like go into court and file motions. And again, this was the good part about the fact that I didn't know what I was doing, because I then read and found out how many things were just wrong. And so I really started to kind of change the trajectory of how cases were handled. And so I was like, you know what? It'd be better if I just run this. And so I was like, let me run on this side. So at the time, the prosecutor was actually leaving to become a judge. So it was an open seat. Yeah. And so here it was, East Texas, and there had not been a black woman elected prosecutor or appointed in the state of Texas. And one of the things that I didn't say in the DNC speech was that when I walked up to the VP the first time I met her, I told her that she had been an inspiration for me for years.
I was literally going to ask you that, because obviously she gets so much negative, maybe some positive, I think mostly negative feedback about her position as a prosecutor.
Yes.
So
Yes.
with you having your own personal experience in that
Yes.
position, I was curious of how you speak to that, or how you even feel about that, or address that for people that may not even understand what it's like
Yes.
to be in that position.
Yes.
So this is interesting to hear.
So yeah, so the thing is, I told her that I didn't have anybody else that I could see in that position. She was the one.
Yeah.
She was the only one that I knew of in the entire country. Now we can name off a list of some. But she was the first one that I saw. And so I told her that because I saw her, I thought, surely I can do this too. And so I ran. I raised a whopping $7,000. You couldn't tell me nothing. I actually won the early vote and lost on election day in East Texas. Yeah. So they spent a little over $60,000 to beat me.
Oh my gosh.
And it was really the race that kind of set the stage. Again, we talked about religion. I consulted with my pastor at the time, Pastor Petrie, and I said, this is what's on my heart, but child, I don't want to go. I was like, I feel like this is what God is calling me to do, but it don't seem right. And so he said, let me tell you something. I agree with you that God is calling you to run, but don't be disappointed if you don't win.
Yeah.
Because just because you're being called to run doesn't mean
You're being called to win.
Exactly. But for that first experience, I really wouldn't have had the experience that I needed to ultimately win that state house race. So a decade later, here it was, I was running for office again. And that time, there actually was a special, but I sat it out because you wouldn't actually go in and do anything. And I thought I was going to be smart. I thought everybody else will back out of the race once they lose, and I'll just go up against the winner. And no, all the losers came back. So I was like, well, what was the point of that? But nevertheless, the first round of the election, I actually came in second. And so the incumbent at the time, she came in first. I was 500 votes behind her. And we finished around March of 20 from the first round. March of 20, COVID hits. So I've got people saying, you got to raise money, you got to raise money, you got to do this, you got to do that. And I was like, we cannot be tone deaf. I was like, I need to do what I do best, which is to kind of just connect with people and help
Community
them.
serve. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So what we did is we got in touch with some people so that we could actually help the community get testing. Because at that time, I don't know if people remember, because it seemed like we got a lot of amnesia as we. But nevertheless,
I actually do feel like COVID gave amnesia, because sometimes I'm like, what was I doing then?
Yeah, no,
very
seriously.
strange.
I'm like, what do y'all? I'm like, do y'all not remember? And so we would set up these testing sites so that people could kind of come and get their testing done and that kind of stuff. And when I initially ran for that seat, I said, we're in the midst of a modern day civil rights movement, and people thought I was being a little dramatic and whatever. And then soon thereafter, George Floyd was killed. So it was
How
about
did you know
May.
that? How did you feel that?
So it was the civil rights work that I was doing. So I had been in the courtrooms and I had listened to kind of the culture of policing, as well as, Ben Crump has been a mentor of mine since I was in my 20s. And so there's so many that have been kind of knee deep in this space. But it's like we got to the point to where we can't keep up with the names. It used to be a point where it's like, oh, Trayvon Martin. Like, you can name almost every one of them. You can name Tamir Rice. Like, you can't keep up with the names because there's so many of them. And so once George Floyd was killed, people are like, oh, she may have been onto something.
And do you feel like that is because I was having a conversation with someone where it's like, because we are trying to push so forward in terms of multicultural democracy, not just democracy for white people, but democracy for black and brown and all kinds of people, that this is actually a response to that we're seeing, this big pushback. It's backing up against where we are trying to move forward? Or is it just history repeating itself? Like, what can we, I don't want to say blame this on, but what can we attribute this to?
I do think that there is white fragility that we're not talking about.
Yeah. For sure.
And to be clear, I think that there's always a certain personality that will feel challenged, right? Like, I mean, we've heard about kind of the competition amongst black women. We've heard about just, this thing where we can't all kind of come together and be supportive. But like, we don't typically talk about the white fragility. And right now, they are scared. Like, they are scared. Like,
And just the concept of times changing.
Exactly.
And things becoming more inclusive.
Absolutely. There's been a browning of America. This was the first census that we had, which we did the census, I guess, now 4 years ago. This was the first census in which white people actually were shown to be on the decline. So all of this stuff about migrants, Like all the pushback that you see on that,
yeah.
all of the pushback you see about us teaching our Black history, all of the
Affirmative action.
Correct. The affirmative action decision, everything where they're saying, well, we want to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion. All these things are saying, well, wait a minute, we got to get back to white supremacy, right? And so they're trying to take us back. And I think it is important that the vice president consistently says, we will not go back. And so everybody's like, we're so divided. We are.
Yeah.
We're divided from this side that says, you know what, there is nothing more beautiful than the beautiful mosaic that makes up who
the
we are.
patchwork of America.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what we stood for.
Exactly.
You know?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Come on. Allegedly. No,
Allegedly.
legitimately. And it's interesting to see it being so in our face. And I'm curious, with your experience now in politics and obviously your experience in law, what is the biggest difference or discrepancy or the difficulty that you have when it comes to politics and trying to change things or see things from the law frame of mind that maybe don't work in this frame of mind? Or if at all, I don't know.
No, the biggest difficulties that I have is just people not really understanding how government works.
Let's get into that.
It is like, it is tough sometimes to explain to people why you can't get certain things accomplished. And it is because there is a failure to understand how government actually works. And granted, part of this is definitely by design.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely pulled civics out of the schools, don't want people to fully understand that. But then there's also like these other things. It's like, I wouldn't know this until I came to Congress. So how in the heck would the people know this, right? Like I had to be a whole member of Congress before I learned some of that. And so we spent a lot of time trying to communicate with my district to make sure that we're very open and honest about what's going on, right? Like, for instance, when we talk about things like reproductive access, and people say, well, the Democrats have controlled the White House, the House, and the Senate before and didn't codify Roe. This is very true. This is very true. And then I have to say things like, and in the Senate, we have this thing called the filibuster. And that raises the threshold from just a simple majority to 60, right? And so basically anybody can raise their hand. Usually it's the opposition. And they're like, I oppose. Now you got to raise it to 60 instead of just a clean 50. So we're never really operating in a simple majority for the most part.
Yeah, of course.
When we're dealing with the Senate. And so the Senate is very difficult. Once the Democrats control the House, we can get voting rights passed. We can get repro rights passed. We can get everything out the House so long as we run the House. And the Senate has all these traditions. And you have to have senators, which our Senate tends to be even older than House members. You have to have senators that say, listen, we appreciate the tradition, but we got to move on. We got to do this. Because when you look at the Democrats they represent in the Senate, because the Senate, it's 2 members from every state, right? So every state gets 2. Whether you're a big state or a little state, you get 2. But when you look at the number of people that are represented by the Democrats, it is the overwhelming majority of the country, right? When we look at the numbers. In addition to that, the Republicans have been steadfast saying, you know what, D.C. doesn't deserve statehood. And we don't want Puerto Rico to have statehood. They don't want statehood for D.C. because D.C. is black. Okay?
Like, Chocolate City.
I mean, that is exactly what they are. And the crazy part is that we have, I think, at least 2 states that have a lower population than D.C., and they will not give it statehood because they're concerned that that will be 2 more Democratic kind of representatives. But when you're saying, okay, 50-50, Democrats still represent the majority of those people. Now when you say it's got to be 60-40, dude, we are being run by a minority of people in this country.
Baby, this is Keke Palmer, yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm not the only Palmer addicted to listening on Audible. I've been a member for years, and my sister and the rest of my family have been converted as well. The beauty of Audible is that they've got the most incredible selection out there. Bestsellers, new releases, exclusive Audible originals, you name it, they've got it. And as a member, you get to choose 1 title a month to keep forever. So you can dive into all kinds of genres, discover new favorites, and get inspired anytime, anywhere. And whether you're listening to stories, motivational talks, expert advice, or any other genre you love on Audible, your mind will take flight. You can picture new worlds, fresh possibilities. I mean, it's like you're living and breathing it all. There's just something about listening that unlocks your imagination and allows you to expand your horizons. I mean, with Audible, there's more to imagine when you listen. And You know what that means, right? Positive change, sis. Yes, listening on Audible can seriously boost your mood, tweak your habits, and level up your overall well-being. It's a total game changer. New members can try Audible free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/Keke or text Keke to 500-500. That's audible.com/KEKE or text KEKE to 500-500. But so then my thought is, then how do we, and I think many people feel this way, especially when you think about Gen Z and millennials. We're like, well, then what the hell I'm involved with it for?
Yeah.
It ends up coming to a place of complete and utter apathy because it feels as if every single corner is locked.
Yeah.
How do you feel re-engaged and excited when an electoral vote or this whole 64, anything can come in and change? And, we already did Roe versus Wade. Now it's overturned again. Like, even when you talked about you won the first time and then all the candidates came back and you're like, how I have to do this? Like, it seems like there's always something going on.
Yeah.
How do we, or even, let me even say this. In a perfect world, for me, Harris wins.
Yeah.
Seems like it might be crazier if we're already up against all this stuff.
Yeah.
And she's representing us moving into the future.
Yeah.
How do we deal? How do we feel about that? Because that's not even just white fragility. That's people all over being scared. I got a black son.
Yeah.
So then what do we do with all of that? And I know this is a loaded question, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, no. I mean, listen, I try to set reasonable expectations for people.
Yeah.
I will tell you that if Harris doesn't win, we've got a big problem in this country. We already have a big problem. And for the most part, we will be stopping a lot of bad stuff.
Okay.
I don't know how much good stuff we're going to get going, but we'll be stopping kind of this continuous trend that we're facing right now. Whether or not we get things going really depends on people voting down ballot, because people know about Harris. But again, I talked about the Senate. The average person is like, who are our U.S. senators? Like, what? Like, no, I need y'all to show up and show out. Like, I need y'all to vote for whoever the Democrat is on that Senate ticket, because she has to have a body that will govern. And right now, we don't know if we're going to hold on to the Senate. It is tight. It is tight for us to hold on. So we need everybody to show up, and we need everybody to vote up and down the ballot. In addition to the House, right now, the House is the most unproductive that it's ever been in the history of the Congress, because the crazy Republicans are running it. And I'm calling them crazy because it's literally the crazy folk is running the insane asylum. That is what's happening, honey. And so I'm just
and I hate how it's all gotten so extreme. Like, when I was a kid, I didn't feel that it was like that. It was like, oh, Republicans, Democrats, whatever. Now it's like, good and evil and evil and good. Like, why is everything so extreme? I don't know why it's gotten like that, because we used to be able to talk about our differences and be like, look, I agree with you on this thing, but honey, I can't go. And whatever group that we decided to be a part of didn't count for the entirety of our personality.
No.
Now, if you're a Democrat, I know your whole personality.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a Republican, I know exactly who you are.
Yeah.
Why is that the thing? That level of division to me is so strange how we got there.
Yeah, the devolution is terrible. But you're right though, right? Like, I keep saying I want politics to be boring again. I want it to go back to where people like what happened? Like, I want to go back to that. Like,
where it's open discussion.
Yes, I don't want to be where everybody is jumping in, don't know what they talking about, all the things. I'm tired. But even when we talk about Helene, right? That just struck.
Yes.
Right before we left, so we're on recess until after the election. So everybody is campaigning for their races, or they're campaigning on the presidential, or both, whatever. And so right before we left, that was when we were supposed to deal with the budget. So we're supposed to deal with the budget before September 30th every single year. And of course, the Republicans can't get their own bills passed. So we hadn't done it. So we have to do like a stopgap measure. So here it is. They put a bill on the floor. They can't pass it amongst themselves. So I'm like, listen, I don't know how y'all expect me to get along with them when they don't get along with them, okay? Like, they don't get along, right? And so it failed. But in that measure, there was an additional $10 billion for FEMA, because we knew the hurricane was coming. Like, it had been announced. You know how they do, right? So we knew it was coming, extra $10 billion. It fails. So then once we finally could get something passed that took off some of the other really terrible things, because they also were cutting money from veterans and some other stuff. So once we finally could get something passed that the Democrats would support, which we had to carry it for them because we got to carry their water in the minority, half of them voted against it, and they took $10 billion out for FEMA. They were like, oh, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. Now,
Was there any reason?
Yeah, because they just crazy. That's the reason. No, seriously. I mean, if people start to dig into Project 2025, they will see that, like, they want to cut all the things that I think the average American, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, that you care about. They want to cut things like Head Start. They want to cut things like Social Security and or raise the age for Social Security.
How do people that are very deep under the 1%ers, that usually are the people that can benefit from this, how do they relate to that?
I agree.
Jasmine, how do you relate to that if you are someone that has immigrants in your family, if you are someone that is hanging on to the very little that you do have, are you that person that's excited about getting your tax refund check because you done been so messed up all year? Yeah. How do you agree with that? I don't care what color you are, what kind of religion. This is just life. Yeah. How do you agree with that when you are the person that's least benefiting from those things?
I think it's a matter of not really understanding. Again, I mean, while people are getting more into government now because it is like watching Real Housewives of the Capitol.
It is. You know, let's just jump quickly to Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and you. Okay,
that was the segue.
I have to, because, honey, when you just brought up the Housewives, I did watch. I'm like, come on, bleach-blonde, bad-built, butch body. That ain't down. Okay, clown town. And I know that this was essentially the discussion you were having, but for me, I think it was really, I don't know if the word would be cool or exciting to watch that because it was humanizing. I don't know how I imagined y'all to be in there talking, but I didn't imagine it to be human-like. You know what I mean? And I know obviously y'all was striking things and some of that language, it was deemed as, is it deemed acceptable? Is it not? But to see that really allowed me to understand, okay, maybe I'm not really understanding the government in a way that I should be able to feel like I can touch it. So when you're in those rooms and those conversations are happening, what allowed you to be so real, I guess, is my question. To say what was on your mind and know that it's not an issue. Because I don't even know if I would have thought, hey, could I say that? I mean, hey, she said the lashes. I mean, I'm just so curious.
Exactly. Yeah, it was the audacity for me.
Wow.
Yeah, so she decided to come for my lashes, which it was not appropriate. And the thing is, it was not allowed. It should not have been allowed. But what we continue to see in this country and in this current climate is this idea of I can do whatever I want to. I mean, I remember when Trump made the statement that he could actually go out on, I think, Fifth Avenue and kill somebody. Or he made the statement about being able to grab women wherever he wants to grab them. Like, it is the audacity and the privilege that makes you believe that you're going to play with me. Yeah. But the reality is that we serve in the same elected capacity. And so you have just as much power as I have. And so I needed to correct the record for her and make sure she understood. So we tried to go through the proper ways of kind of resolving the issue. She should have either been kicked out or she was supposed to have to apologize. She decided that she wasn't going to apologize, and the chairman got nervous about how many votes he had, so he didn't end up kicking her out. So then that's when I wanted to basically make it clear I won't be the one.
I love how you posed the question because you weren't saying, but you were like, is it okay if I say it?
Correct. So I never... So I never broke the rules. No. I never broke the rules. I never said her name. Yep. But a hit dog hollered. She knew exactly who I was talking about. She was like, I look good for being 50. I'm like, girl, that's the part that
being 50.
Yes, that's what she. Yes. But people, Anyway, I showed her and I showed them that not only do I understand the rules of the game and I know how to play the rules better than y'all, but I also can cut you way deeper than you ever thought that you were cutting me, because that's just the brain that I've been blessed with by the good Lord above.
I mean, who did you, and this will be my last question before we get to this game. I could keep talking to you forever. I feel like there was so much more that I wanted to get into, but who did you have to see, if anyone, in these positions? I know you mentioned the VP, but was there anyone else that you saw own their space as a Black woman in this way?
Yeah, so I would say in real time, no. I would say that when I started to kind of dig a little bit more with me being a member of Delta Sigma Theta, I mean, we're appreciating this right now. I would absolutely say Shirley Chisholm as well as Barbara Jordan. So they were both first for me. Barbara was the first Black woman to be elected to Congress from Texas, and then Shirley was obviously the first Black woman ever to be elected to Congress. But, you know, they couldn't even see themselves, right? Like, I mean, especially Shirley. But she went in and she was her authentic self with her strong accent and all. And, you know, I think that I have no reason to cower when I know that the women that paved the way and made an opportunity for me never cowered. They were never trying to be white men because honestly, they were occupying spaces that had only been occupied by white men, and they didn't try to be that.
And it's exactly what you said to Charlie early on in this interview. Is what actually makes me important and needed to be here is because I am a Black woman. And I remember that was one of the things that we talked about quickly when I first met you, was it's important for us to show up in these spaces as ourselves.
That's right.
And my mother always taught me that. And she would have me look at Queen Latifah and Will Smith and say, you can see them. You recognize who you are through them, standing up there and representing our culture. So don't ever change. You know how to speak. You know how to say what you need to say. You know how to be clear. But show yourself. So I mean, I live for that. I live for you.
Yes.
It's been amazing talking to you.
Yes.
Before I let you go, I would love to play a game with you. I play one with all my guests, okay? It's called Questions That Need to Be Answered, okay?
Okay.
It's going to be rapid fire, and you just give me some rapid fire answers. Sound good?
Okay. We gonna see.
Okay, what's your go-to pleasure after a long day on Capitol Hill?
Definitely a French 75 and a bath.
I know that's right. I live for a bath. Sometimes I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, it's been 2 hours in the bath? It's crazy.
Yes.
What's the wildest rumor you've heard about yourself since entering politics?
That I was married to my daddy.
Now, that's a projection if I've ever heard one. Okay, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Stupid people.
Okay, who's the politician with the best fashion sense of all time, in your opinion?
I don't know if she's considered a politician, but definitely First Lady Jackie.
Oh,
just
you would eat down.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, what's the most annoying thing about politicians?
That they lie a lot. Yes.
Now, wait a minute. Do they have to lie to not spook the public, or are they just straight up liars?
No, they're just straight up liars. Yeah, because the spoofing part, like, we just know we're not allowed to talk about certain things. So you just don't talk about.
You ain't gotta lie.
No, it's certain things we're not allowed to discuss. But like, I'll be like, why you lying? Why are you lying? Stop lying to people.
Are you more likely to text back with emojis or with the full-on paragraph? Now, this is funny because you are a lawyer. So.
Actually, I do lots of emojis.
Oh, wow, that's so cute.
Yeah,
very demure.
I do.
Very cutesy. What is one fashion trend you secretly love but you'd never wear as a politician?
Oh, that I'd never wear. I actually love and appreciate people with colored hair.
Okay, I can see you with some tips.
Maybe, but I appreciate people that can wear colored hair. I just don't think I'll be blonde. So
hilarious. Okay, last one. Your go-to karaoke song?
It is going to be Alicia Keys.
Ooh, Alicia Keys. We're singing.
It is. You Don't Know My Name. That's probably the one. There's a couple that I do.
Go ahead, give us a little bit.
Oh, no. See how she playing? She knows she the singer.
Cue the music. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you. I'm so glad. You know, you just need to come back and have another conversation so I can get more questions out.
Yes. Thank you.
I feel so inspired hearing Jasmine's take on navigating politics as a Black woman. I mean, my takeaway is that it's not just about surviving the system. It's truly about knowing who you are and standing firm in that identity and using it as leverage in the system. What she said makes me feel like when you know yourself, no one can shake your foundation, no matter what challenges or disrespect comes your way. So keep your head high, know your worth, move with confidence, and I'll see y'all next week because you know it's your girl.
Baby,